Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To our supervisor, Dr. Marni binti Ghazali and our panels. I am Nur Shakirah binti Ali Yusi with my research partner Nur Kamarina binti Abdul Rahim will present on the research paper which is the effect of socio-demographic factors towards voting behavior among youth in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. So let's start with our presentation.
According to Elman and Verba 2015, voting in an election is a democratic process used in Malaysia as it involves the decision-making process. Therefore, the process that has been used in Malaysia is democracy, which is a system or concept that is opposite to communism. As highlighted by Rule 2016, voting behavior applies to the decisions or shortcomings of people to engage in the election to be held by representative of their state, provincial or national government. Behavior leads either in favor of political candidates or parties or in abstention from the election process. According to Kanji and Archer 2002, explains that the voters are driven largely by their social group's affiliation that simply responds to the socio-demographic characteristic which strongly relates to influence their votes. As highlighted by New Straits Times 2015, the recent study shows that socio-demographic factors that influencing voting behavior among youth is crucial as it can be the crucial measurement in conducting a process of voting in Malaysia among youth.
The problem statement, according to Mahir 2018, certain youth in rural areas are excited to participate in the election votes, but some of them do not feel interested in the local political scene that are too aggressive. Then, as highlighted in the star, the youth were less interested in voting elections as they are not interested in the political quarrel between the political parties. In effect, the youth also believe that their life will continue the same as they had no development done in their rural area, despite whoever won the election. Furthermore, Stafford 2013 stated that the socio-demographic factors can be the issue or the problems in terms of gender, age, highest education level, and race. Thus, based on the above statement mentioned above, this study aims to examine the effect of socio-demographic factors towards voting behavior among youth in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan.
Next, we move to the research question and objective. The first research question is, what is the level of youth involvement in voting behavior at Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan? And the second research question is there any significant difference in voting behavior on the basis of socio-demographic factors, namely age, gender, highest education level, and race at Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan? The research objective is to identify the level of youth involvement in voting behavior at Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan. And the second research question is to examine the significant difference in voting behavior on the basis of socio-demographic factors, namely age, gender, highest education level, and race at Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan.
Based on the diagram, it shows the conceptual framework of the effect of socio-demographic factors towards voting behavior among youth in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. There are 4 independent variables which are gender, age, highest education level, and race, while the dependent variables consist of voting behavior among youth.
Next, we move to the research methodology. For the research design, we use the quantitative method through the cross-sectional study. Next, for the unit of analysis, it involves the individual youth who lives at the rural area at Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan. For the sample size, we have chosen 384 respondents of youth that live in rural area at Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan. For the data analysis, there are 2, which is the descriptive statistic and inferential statistic. For the descriptive statistic, consists of mean and significant difference, and for the inferential statistic consists of independent t-test and one-way ANOVA. For the sampling technique, we use the purposive sampling technique with inclusion criteria such as youth who lives in Kuala Pilah. For the data measurement, we use the Likert scale for the scale of measurement which is it consists of from 1 to 5 scale. For the 1 scale, it is strongly disagree, and for the 5 scale, it is strongly agree.
The first main findings that is related to examine the level of youth involvement in voting behavior in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. The finding used descriptive statistic methods. As shown in the diagram, the study finding has indicated that the level of youth involvement in voting behavior, particularly in Kuala Pilah, is at moderately high. This can be seen with the mean value that has been stated in the diagram, which is within the range between 3.49 to 4.00. Following is the detailed explanation regarding youth involvement in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. There are 12 questions that had been related in examining the level of youth involvement in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan.
Next, we move to the main finding of research objective 2, which is to examine the significant difference in voting behavior between male and female gender in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. So, based on the results of independent t-test to examine the significant difference in voting behavior between male and female in Kuala Pilah, the mean value of male gender tendency towards voting behavior is 3.74, which is approximately similar to female's tendency, which is the mean value is 3.70. So we accept the H null one and reject the H alternative one. So the hypothesis is there is no significant difference between genders and voting behavior among youth in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan.
The next finding was to examine the significant difference between voting behavior among youth on the basis factor of age in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. So according to ANOVA result, the significance is 0.03, which data shown that it is less than 0.05. As a result, there is a significant difference between the basis of demographic factors age and voting behavior. Then, the mean value of the age of four groups of age categories tendency in voting behavior are approximately equal to each other. So, for the decisions, accept H alternative 2 and reject H null 2.
The next main finding for research objective 2, which is to examine the significant difference in voting behavior on the basis of highest education level in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. It can be concluded that the mean value of the level of education of 5 groups categories tendency in voting behavior, which is the first one is SPM or certificate. The mean value is 3.63 and the significant difference is 0.842. The second one is diploma. The mean value is 3.94 and the significant difference is 0.694. The third one is the bachelor or degree. The mean value is 3.76 and the significant difference is 0.727. The fourth one is the master, which is the mean value 3.12 and the significant difference is 0.704. And the last one is PhD. The mean value is 3.43 and the significant difference is 0.856. The five highest education levels are approximately equal to each other. And we accept the H alternative 3 and reject the H null 3. And the hypothesis is there is a significant difference between highest education level and voting behavior among youth.
The main finding was to examine the significant difference between voting behavior among youth and the basis of race factors in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. So the diagram shows that the significant value was 0.000. This data show that it is smaller than 0.05. As a result, there is a significant difference between the basis of demographic factors race and voting behavior among youth. So the mean value of the race of the four groups, which is Malay, Chinese, Indian, and others, tendency in voting behavior which are approximately equal to each other. So the decision was to accept H alternative 4 and reject H null 4.
Move to the recommendation. The first recommendation is Education and Awareness Program of Voting Behavior. Education and Awareness Program of Voting Behavior had been done by Electoral Commission as to encouraging and attracting the youth voters in increasing vote participation on general election. There are various awareness of program that has been done which using the social media, television, campaign and roadshow campaign as to attract the young people on giving awareness to them how important their votes to political party that involved in general election. According to Rahim 2017, the political party that involved in competing for the general election had spent 450 million ringgit on political campaign as the purpose of attracting young people on carrying out their responsibilities. The second recommendation is vitality of democracy of voting behavior. The vitality of democracy of voting behavior is important as the young voters' participation is encouraged on taking part in votes for their interest political parties. This research can be a guidance as the voting behavior relates to the level of participations is subjected to the aspect of the socio-demographic as well on taking part in electoral participation in the electoral participation. This is according to the YIMI 2018. Next, therefore, youth participation on voting behavior show the vitality of democracy as well as the increasing number of youth participation can be a crucial indicator as associated with the enough knowledge about politics and objective of government in educating the youth. This research will provide more about the difference basis on socio-demographic towards the voting behavior in ensuring the vitality of democracy can be achieved in future as well grabs the attention of youth as well in behave well on voting behavior. The third recommendation is enhancing youth participation on voting. Youth participation on voting plays a vital role which represents a unique aspect among different of forms of political participation among youth as well the citizens which represent young people that can engage in influence government. Furthermore, participations in elections ensure the faithful representative on ensuring the policy outcome that can be changed into better by policymaker as well. Therefore, young people was the biggest influential on the election as the young people involvement are the key important aspect that effect on turnout in voting and also substantive representation of youth.
The limitation of this study was the limited sample size. The challenges for the researchers was this research has to do distribute questionnaire on the platform of social media. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was hard for the researchers to find the respondents and more focusing on distributing the questionnaires through social media platforms such as WhatsApp and Facebook. Moreover, it is hard for the researchers on finding the right respondents and locate them significantly for the target respondents on answering the questionnaire. Next limitation of the study was the response rates, which difficulty in getting respondents because of COVID-19 pandemic. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government had implementing the movement control order or known as MCO and roadblocks had been held as the researchers were having difficulties on distributing the questionnaires to the respondents. So moreover, the researchers also used the other alternative, which is an online survey that known as a Google Forms, which is more efficient in getting respondents, which the researcher distributed the questionnaire using social media and the response was great and better.
Last but not least, as the conclusion, it is always prudent for the government, government agencies, non-governmental organization, which is NGOs, interest groups and the opposition to create something that leads to improving the awareness of the youth regarding their participation in voting. Next is encouraging them to turn out on election day through campaigning, manifestos, and programs related to giving awareness about exercising their right through the election process. Also, it is critical to emphasize the importance of raising awareness in order to persuade and urge young people to vote on election day. This is because without appropriate education, the youth will continue to criticize without using their right to vote and will also blame the voting process on a lack of information and awareness about politics and voting in a good manner.